Hello and welcome to Filmi Ladies. I am Beth. Here is Pitu. And we are talking about Lootera, which of course has just finished its 10-year anniversary. And my social media was all about people rewatching Lootera and talking about it fondly. So we thought we'd try to get in on that. It's based on an O. Henry short story, a very short story, The Last Leaf. And maybe we could start by talking about the short story a little bit. What are your...
I'm not like super familiar with O. Henry. The only two stories of his that I know are The Last Leaf and then the other one whose name I've forgotten that Raincoat is based on. Apparently, there's also a third short story he wrote that the 70s Amitabh Bachchan masala movie Zamir is based on as well, but I have not seen Zamir. So there's something about O. Henry that I think is appealing to Indian filmmakers. And based on Lootera and Raincoat, I feel like I should probably read more of his work. But I really like Last Leaf. It's super short. It's actually open source now, so we can put it in the YouTube description so people can go read it. It's literally like 6 pages. I thought it was very sweet. And his stories, like this one as well as the one that Raincoat is based on, they tend to have a feeling of tyag, don't they? Which is funny because that is not exactly a word that you and I are fond of. No. But I think it's because it's not super heavy-handed and because it's sweet and it's subtle, I think it works. But there's definitely this like tyag vibe in both of the stories and both of the movies, I think.
Yeah, and
what did you think?
The Raincoat is based on The Gift of the Magi, which I grew up knowing as the basis of like half of the stories you ever see, especially at Christmas.
And
I had forgotten if I've seen Raincoat. I've completely forgotten it, so I feel like I must not have seen it. But you know, classic sacrificing. I was about to say nonsense. Maybe that's not fair. Last Leaf is from 1907. And I wish I have a friend who's very into literature from the turn of the century. And I should have talked to him about this before recording, and I did not. But I mean, I don't know. It's fine. It's Suffering Artists are not my favorite.
In garrets.
For anything in actual garrets, very Dutch garrets, nothing but the finest Dutch garrets for these New Yorkers of 100 and whatever years ago. I mean, it's there's not much to say about it because it's so short. It's just there, I feel. Obviously, Lootera invents a lot to turn it into a 2-hour film, and add a romance and add police chase and art theft and all the other stuff that goes on. But I rewatched the film and then read the short story. I should have done that the other way around, but
no, I did that too.
Such is life. But yeah, I mean, and as a source material to do something with, clearly it worked. And I don't really have a lot to say about The Last Leaf, I guess. So maybe the more literary minded among you, if you would like to comment, you should. But
the funniest thing that I found, which was unintentionally funny about The Last Leaf, is like I actually used to live in New York. I lived in Chelsea, and I think there's like a throwaway line in it in The Last Leaf where they imply that they live in Greenwich Village because it's not expensive at all. Like it's actually affordable. I was like, Greenwich Village? Are you serious?
Well,
that is like my dream neighborhood. I know. I was like, that was my dream neighborhood.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that Greenwich Village, we live there because that's the only place us starving artists can live. But of course, that is where the starving artists used to live originally. There's actually a really good book I love. It's called The Ghost of Greenwich Village. And it's so funny. It's this girl who a writer, she moves into a rent-controlled apartment and she wants to write and she discovers that the place is haunted. That's why no one wants to live there, because the ghost is this elderly gentleman and he's very sweet. And he keeps interfering with her writing, but it was really funny, actually. So anyway, I digress. So that was the most interesting thing about the short story to me, just laughter at the idea that Greenwich Village was cheap. I've always felt, and you tell me what you think, but I've always felt that Lootera almost seems, not in a bad way, but it seems like 2 different movies, pre-interval and post-interval, right?
Very much, to the extent that I had completely forgotten the post-interval part of this movie.
Yes.
Completely.
It even visually looks like the first part is just warm and saturated in these very
Yes.
like Indian colors. That's like brown and ochre and
Sort of
gold.
autumnal, well, North American
Yeah,
autumnal
yes.
anyway, but yeah, just gorgeous. I
Yeah,
screenshotted so many pictures of that Haveli. I want it. I want to live there. I want to own. I don't need the treasures, but just like that, the beautiful yellow walls with the dark wood furniture. If my room were clean enough to turn off my camera, I would show you. Like, I'm kind of aiming for that in my house. The place is
right.
like, I want it. So
I want the
gorgeous and
treasure. I'll
sunny.
settle for the treasure. Yeah, but like even her wardrobe, like the
Yeah.
beautiful, very rich, like colors,
The
earthy tones
pinks.
she
Oh.
wears. Yeah, I mean, it's warm and it's sunny and it's
Mm-hmm.
very like Indian. And then the
Mm-hmm.
second part is like winter in Himachal Pradesh or wherever. It's Dalhousie, and the tiny little house, it reminded me a little bit of the house in Kala, although the one in Kala
Yes.
was so much more grand.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was like dark and foreboding, and
Yes.
she's dying of consumption, of tuberculosis, and it was just like what happened, and it just felt like two completely different stories, but not in a bad way. I think it just highlighted how completely her life changed after her father passed away, and then
Yeah.
the Zamindari Act was passed, and it's just there's this phrase I really love. It's actually the title of a book, and it's called The Villa of Reduced Circumstances.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about aristocrats who have now fallen on like hard times or whatever. And this just has like Villa of Reduced Circumstances written all over it.
Yeah.
But what did you think about the artistic choices for the director to make these two very seemingly different films pre and post interval?
I mean, maybe this is partly because I forgot, but so I can't say how this would have worked if I had remembered, but it was a shock to the system, and I was re-energized
Yeah.
to see what the heck was going on. I had
It was
also
like a cold
forgotten.
shower.
Yeah, I had forgotten, again, spoilers, like we're talking about the 10th
So
anniversary, like,
many.
everyone has seen this probably. I had forgotten that her father died.
Yeah.
I was re-energized in a really kind of excited way for the rest of the movie. I did feel it lagged a little bit towards somewhere in this, towards the like 2/3 of the second half. So what is that, 5/6 through the movie or whatever, but I
Yeah.
was still quite engaged. And I think that the way that the two different looks were so complementary, cold and warm, blue and yellow, or like grayish, blackish with the sunny, all the snow, the sun, all these, or actually like the crinkly leaves and all these things they worked really well as pairs. And we're also, she is the through line, I would say, in terms of personality, whereas his personality in the second half is significantly different than it is in the first half that we see anyway. And like the swap of the father is replaced sort of by the main police inspector as the elder man,
Right.
authority figure in the film. That's a nice pairing. The emphasis of law in both, but handled in different ways, is really interesting. So I just thought it worked really well narratively, but also, as you're saying, visually, like they complement each other really well. I'm so glad you brought up Kala, because I actually went back to our Kala episode to see if we had talked about how much it looks like Lootera, and we had not. But
Okay.
I, as admitted, have forgotten the second half, so I couldn't have said that. But it really is a very striking setting, and I would gladly live in that house too. By the way, I don't only require Zamindari
I
Haveli,
don't
but
think I would live in that one because it's just too dark and depressing for me.
but I think it
It
wouldn't
just feels
have to
so
be. I
clearly.
think that they kept it that way because she is dying,
Yeah.
so
No,
I
no,
assume.
it's right for the movie. I'm just saying it's not right for me.
Yeah.
It's
But
just it's
if
too.
you lived there, you would light more fires in the fireplace, and it
Yes.
would be much more cheerful, and you would like have hot cocoa, and people would come over, and
Oh yeah,
it would
for
be
sure.
great.
There'd be parties and stuff.
Yeah.
There would have to be more than 3 people because Amrita keeps telling us that 3 people is
Right.
not a party.
Nope. More
Boo,
than three.
Amrita. But also, like, even the way she's dressed, like her
Yeah.
beautiful sari. Savarlu alone has her changing into like 12 saris. And, her makeup and her jewelry. And she just looks so beautiful in the first half. And then in the second half, she's in these like dark colors, like a dark shawl, and stripped of makeup, I assume, no jewelry. She doesn't wear a bindi anymore. And she basically just has one companion, which is Devyadatta, who I think cooks for her and cleans for her, I think. Whereas in the first half, she has a life. You see her at the theater with a friend, you see
That's
her
true.
getting ready for her engagement with like her girlfriends. It doesn't seem like she has very many like best friends or whatever, but she's
No,
shown with people.
a little bit. Yeah.
And then in the second half, it just feels like she's just this island. Like
Yeah.
her dad died, she left her home, and now she's just like adrift. And the only person who seemingly cares about her is her hired help, basically. So it's just like so sad. What do you think of Ranveer Singh in this movie? I have such a soft spot for him.
I thought he was great. I had to go back and look and see how early this is in his filmography. It's kind of impossible at his third film, right? So that's
Wow.
fairly amazing. And then right after his next film after this is the Romeo and Juliet one, whose name is escaping me at the moment, Ram Leela.
Oh, I don't know.
Like, that doesn't seem that long ago to me, but it was 2014. So it was almost, a little bit less than 9 years ago. I really am very impressed with him. I thought he was great. It is even more of an unusual film in retrospect for him, I think, than it was at the time, since, as we talked about in talking, playing against type, I think now in retrospect, we would say this is against type, but that type had not been, it was established by 2 films. That's not enough, but
right.
It certainly wasn't what we were expecting him to do. And he did a really lovely job. He's a little hammy at times, but I don't mind. And I think that suited the character as well, because that character does go through some very dramatic things. So including, and again, seriously about the spoilers, he accidentally kills his best friend.
Yeah.
/ sort of brother figure. Also, I'd forgotten that was Vikramaditya. And I was like, is that it? Is his very
I
first
saw the credits and it said Vikramaditya, and I'm like, wait, it has Vikramaditya? See, this is why it's helpful to have a goldfish brain like us. Like, we're just perennially pleased and
delighted
surprised
all over again. So I thought he did a really good job. And Sonakshi Sinha is not someone I care about one way or the other, really. I don't, she either chose or was offered sort of a string of things that I just don't care about. I don't think she's awful. She's not the worst of the Nepo babies by any means, but I don't miss her presence either. But I thought that they had kind of a lovely pairing that worked well in this film. I don't suspect I would really buy them as a pair in other films. It was very context specific, but the casting for this I thought was quite good. And but to me, this is never going to be the Ranveer Singh that I most like. I don't think. I'm a little more fond of the sort of cocaine weasel version. Weasel's not fair, but like cocaine ferret energy that he has in other films. He brings the masala in a way that I really like. But I did really like him in this too. And I would not be disappointed to see him do more of this kind of thing, although he's obviously 10 years older at this point and shouldn't do exactly this kind of thing. But I know you've referred to your fondness for this role multiple times. So talk about your reaction a little bit.
This is my second favorite Ranveer Singh. So this used to be my absolute favorite Ranveer Singh movie. The only movie I've ever found him attractive to me. I adore everything about him in this movie, but then Gully Boy came, and then Murad in Gully Boy became my number one. So he's like my emo, I want something, I'm going to go get it. He's crying, he's fighting for everything. Like, I have such a soft spot for Murad from Gully Boy. I love him so much. But until Gully Boy came along, Varun in Lootera was my absolute favorite Ranveer Singh and one of my favorite male characters. But I love this Ranveer Singh, the one who's poised and he's reserved and he lets his eyes do the talking. Like, there's such a sexiness to him. He's not trying too hard. He's sophisticated. I am not a fan of the Ranveer Singh that we now see, and I do not enjoy his off-screen personality either. I did like him in, Dil Dhadakne, though. I really enjoyed him in Band Baja Barat, especially the zeal with which he does the dances in Band Baja Barat. Eve or Dum Dum Mast Hai. Like, he's so great at that. Like, he is the most energetic dancer, I think, after Shah Rukh. Like, he really brings it. But other than those two, Ranveer Singh just tires me out. Like just watching him exhausts me. So like Lootera, Ranveer Singh is just chef's kiss, gorgeous, and I
He's
love
really
him.
good.
I love his very emotional scene with her, where in the second half of the movie, where he's kind of sitting at her feet and he's sort of crying, and he basically tells her how he really wants to be with her and he really loves her. I love the scene in the first half of the film where they're sort of separated by this sort of like mesh curtain or machardani, as it's called in India, and she's sketching or she's writing something, and he says, "What are you writing?" Like those tender moments, they just feel very like dreamlike to me.
Yeah.
Maybe because of the gauze, and it's so lovely.
The exchanges where they are all but whispering are really,
Yes.
that's a very clever choice. And it happens at least twice, maybe 3 times.
Yes.
I found those very effective. Again, I had completely forgotten those, and those were some really, really lovely moments.
I really want to see him do more of this. I think Ranveer Singh and Varun Dhawan are both the characters where I really love them when they tone it down. Ranveer Singh more so, but the Ranveer that we're seeing in the trailers for Rocky and Rani, that's not my vibe at all. I'm sure he'll do it well because he does comedy really well, but Lootera Ranveer Singh is like amazing to me.
So would you call this, I don't mean to take us off of him. Does this feel kind of like whatever our current version of parallel cinema is, or like middle cinema, like Rishikesh Mukherjee-ish?
Yeah, or like a little bit experimental, maybe. Yeah, for sure. I would say, I mean, it's clearly not masala, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also not like super parallel for me. Like it's not like Miss Lovely or whatever. Like, it is
right.
It is
it's
very
not pushing
much
any
that,
boundaries, really.
No, it is kind of middle of the road, and everything about it is middle of the road. And if you look at Sonakshi, and I think that is also possibly why they chose to set it in the 50s.
Yeah.
And even the way that Sonakshi looks, she literally looks like a heroine from like the 70s. I mean, her resemblance to Reena Roy always like takes me away.
I mean, when I first, I guess it would have been Dabang that I first saw her in, I had to look it up, and I was like, seriously, that's not her mother? Seriously?
Right. She looks exactly like her.
The same.
Yeah. But one thing I have to say, and so like you, I don't particularly have an opinion about Sonakshi Sinha, only because I've seen only 2 movies of hers. I've only seen Lootera and I've seen Dabang. That's it. I actually looked up her filmography after rewatching Lootera, and I have never seen any of these movies that she's worked in, like Action Jackson and all of that. Like those are just not films that I ever want to see. So I have no idea how to rank her as an actress. Like, is she like awesome, but she just gets terrible roles if she chooses to do terrible roles? Or she is generally kind of bad, but in this movie, Vikramaditya Motwane managed to get a great performance. I have no idea how to rank this woman. But I have to say, it was such a breath of fresh air for me to see an Indian actress who, number one, actually looks Indian, number two, speaks Hindi perfectly, 3, is not stick thin and 6 feet tall and looking like a model fresh off the runway, and also someone who is not whitewashed to the point where her skin tone, I mean, the fact that to my eyes now is so like, I can't remember the last time I saw an Indian actress who looked like Sonakshi Sinha did, because nobody wears saris in movies anymore. Everybody is either whitened to oblivion, or they're using some sort of filters to make them look almost Caucasian. Nobody is wearing like kajal and bindis, their hair in a braid. Nobody dresses like that anymore. I just loved her skin tone and how brown she was and beautiful. The last time I appreciated someone's actual Indian skin tone being shown on film was Deepika Padukone in Pathan. I was like, yes, that is how a vast majority of Indian people look. Now, if you are naturally extremely fair, like say Aishwarya Rai is, or Kareena Kapoor is, I have no problem with that. Right. What I have a problem is when you take someone whose skin tone is a certain shade of brown, like say coffee brown, and you try to make them look like milk. That to me is offensive. So I was just like taken aback by how absolutely gorgeous she looked and how pitch perfect her performance was. And it made me wonder, like, if she got more roles like this, or if she chose to do more roles like this, we could have had like a really amazing actress right now, you know? I thought
Maybe.
she was very nuanced and really good. Like she held her own in this movie. Also,
Yeah.
can we talk about the dad? He was so cute.
Yeah, I mean that actor is
Darling.
Bengali
Yeah.
stalwart. He's always good, and he in the last 10 years has kind of resurfaced and is doing a bunch of these kind of things, and I'm always happy to see him. But
He was just darling. I loved him
yeah,
so much. And then when like I'm so glad they didn't show him like die or have a heart attack or anything because
yeah,
I don't think I would have been able to see that without crying. Do you want to talk about the music?
yeah. I find it very uneven. And there were things in the background score that I full on disliked. And I can't
Yes.
remember where exactly because I didn't write it down, but there were so many instances where I like kind of went, why does it
Yeah.
sound like that? Like it was too dramatic or too
Also very loud.
modern and too loud. And I just, yeah, I didn't care for the background score at all. And the songs themselves, you know, I rewatched it 2 days ago. I'm kind of like, they're fine. They didn't really speak
Yeah.
to me but I don't, yeah, but the score was my problem. The songs per se, I thought were generally appropriate and worked well and
Yeah.
did what they needed to do.
The score, it definitely made me go, huh? In the second
Yeah.
half. The first half I thought it was fine, but in the second half, especially, there were scenes where Vikrant Masi and Ranveer Singh are saying things, or the cops are saying things, and I kept getting jolted because it was so loud I couldn't hear what they were saying.
And the background score is Amit Trivedi, which
Yeah,
I
he
tend to
gave
really
the
like.
songs as well.
I tend to like his music a lot. Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, well, that's a rare miss
I
from
feel
him for
like
me.
the background score was too loud. It was drowning out what the actors were saying. So that annoyed me a little. I actually had to put subtitles on at one
Wow.
point because I was like, wait, I just missed what Vikrant Masi said. What did he say? Or what did that Kayan saying the police person say? And I had to like rewind. So I had to put captions on. So when someone is having to put subtitles on, your background score is too loud.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was annoying, but it was only in the second half. But the music is actually one of my favorites. I love Savarlu. It reminds me a lot this black and white song that's shot on Sadhna. I can't remember who the music director, but it's called Gira Hai Kisi Ka Jhumka, Ghane Ghane Pe Neem Tale. It's so nice, and it Savarlu reminds me a little bit of it. I think it's an Opie Nair song, if I'm not wrong. I love Man Marziyan. Shilpa Rao's voice in it is just, it's like whiskey.
That was good.
And then I love Montare. It is so cute. It has those like bowl players, and I don't know if I pronounced bowl correctly. It has that like folk vibe to it, and it's shot. I also really like how Savarlu, the way it's shot. Like it's just a montage of them like hanging out and doing painting and just like eyes, and you know, it's just so pretty. But yeah, I personally really love the music of Lootera, and Amit Trivedi is a favorite. Is there anything about Lootera that annoys you? I mean, except for the background score.
Yes, there is one thing. I guess this is a story critique. All right. So there's always this question of, is it fair to critique a film for what it doesn't try to do? You know, so with that in mind, I just, you know, when in the second half, when they are, you know, in the snowy house and she's put up a good show of being angry at him and wanting to keep her distance from him and all this other kind of stuff. Although clearly she's in cahoots with the police. She knows he's coming, like, so, and we don't really, I felt, get a sense of her decision making around that. But maybe that's for us to imagine, and maybe we're supposed to decide whether she wanted revenge or she wanted closure or she hoped that they could reunite or whatever. But I'm also not clear exactly how old she's supposed to be. So 20, maybe, something like that. Girl, like,
because she's graduated from Shantiniketan. We know that.
That's right.
So my assumption is she's done her matriculation or whatever the diploma would have been, but her dad doesn't seem to be in a huge rush to marry her off. She's got to be minimum 2021 to be a graduate.
I just, you know, many of us know what it's like to fixate on someone who's not a good idea. This man is bad news. He is a thief. He is a
A
liar.
liar.
He is looting India's national cultural patrimony. And as a museum professional, I have real issues with that. He's a bad person.
Yeah.
Not a bad person because he's an orphan. He's not a bad person because he is just trying to do his best to get along in the world that's rapidly changing, whatever. He's a bad person because of specific choices he's made. You have got to meet some other people so you know that this is not the only man in the whole world that you can have a crush on or even have a relationship with. It should not be hard for her to get married if that's what she wants, given the social setting of this movie, right? So at the end of it, I was just annoyed because I was like, this is why you can't just know the one person in your whole life and have that be your whole love story arc most of the time, right? Like, I was irritated at that, but I was also trying to understand, to think through, like, she obviously has a clock ticking on her life, or she thinks she does anyway, right? So maybe she doesn't feel there's time to fall in love with somebody else. Maybe she's a much more romantic person by nature. Like, I don't know. So I was just kind of frustrated for her that somehow she has an internal narrative that this is the only person she can even meet, you know, because you were saying that her life doesn't seem so small in the first half, but to me it kind of seemed like it did. I don't know who her friends are, but like, you know, we don't really see her getting off the property even. And maybe that's super realistic, but then we find out she went to Shantiniketan. So like, where's the nice young man who went to Shantiniketan with you? That, like, I've seen a lot of Bengali movies from the 50s, like, match them, you know, like there have been. So the smallness of her world frustrated me. And I'm not saying it's not realistic or anything. I just felt like I wanted more for herself than the film allowed her to have. Yeah. But maybe that's very much I'm sure that's very much on purpose. And maybe there's just something to that I'm not getting, or that didn't work for me for some reason. So that's really my only annoyance, but I understand narratively how it worked. I just wanted a bigger life for her than she was being allowed to have for whatever reason.
So the funny thing is, when I was watching it this time, it reminded me, and I hate to be that person that brings up this movie constantly, although you will appreciate it. It reminded me of Charu.
Of course, she's got the magnifying glass and the window. Very much.
It's this habit of, you're not the doer, you're not actually doing anything, you're the watcher. You watch while the world goes along without you. But here's the thing, you have privilege. You come from a rich zamindar family. You have so much money. You have a dad who is clearly not orthodox and who has high hopes for you. Now, he does patronize you a little bit when you say you want to be a writer, but you know, he's not stopping you from doing it. He's letting you do the painting. One gets
you have an education, like, go do something with it.
One gets the sense that she could do something, but she chooses not to. She chooses instead. I actually think that her character is well written, because while you and me may want to shake her a bit and be like, girl, get off your big booty and go do something useful. While we may feel that way, I think she is portrayed as this kind of like emotionally immature person.
Yes, I agree.
There's those little scenes where it's like she wants to drive, but if she hits someone with her car, then she wants the driver to take the blame.
That was horrible.
It was terrible. She's petulant and she's smug about it. And I was like, girl, you spoiled.
And but like spilling coffee on a guest. Like, just, she's rude.
She is. She's actually entitled. I think she's a little bit of a brat, but I think she gets by with her brattiness because she's so pretty. So she has the pretty privilege going for her. She's also the zamindar's daughter. So who exactly is going to say anything to her? So she does have that. She doesn't have a lot of social skills. There's a fair bit of entitlement to this girl. I think for me, one of the most annoying scenes is when Ranveer is doing this whole like playing hot and cold thing, which admittedly is very bad and he should not be doing that. Do not approve. But when she shows up at his archaeological gig that we now know was not a dig, and she embarrasses him in front of everyone. Again, that's not, I would be very angry. Okay. If someone showed up at my place of work and embarrassed me, I would be like, you will not do that again. If you do that again, I will never, ever talk to you. Do not embarrass me at work. You know? So I think I think she's meant to be this sort of child woman, much as
Yeah.
I hate the term.
I think
And she's
so.
meant to be, I think she's just someone who wants what she wants. And she doesn't really live in the real world. And she doesn't understand that sometimes you have to make the best of what you've got and you have to go out and explore life by yourself. I think for her, it's easier. Maybe it's also that being a motherless child, her father has, taken so much care of her to the point of having enabled her when she's hurt and sad. He tells her these stories about the king and the parrot and everything, and she kind of wants that. She wants someone to take care of her, and she doesn't know how to move on. The girl does not have a lot of social skills, Beth.
No, she doesn't. No.
But I think it's an interestingly written character because there are a lot of people like that, unfortunately, and she could benefit from someone like you and me who would be more of the tough love friend who would be like, girl, you got to stop crying, get up and do something.
I mean, I would at least drag her out to go see the Dev Anand movie or whatever.
Yes, go see the Dev Anand movie. And she's shown as having a social life in the first half. She goes to the theater and stuff like that. But I also wonder to what extent she feels depressed because
I'm sure.
I don't know. Yeah, but like I feel like in the 1950s, tuberculosis was essentially a death sentence.
Oh yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, like I don't think there was treatment for it, so she probably knows her days are numbered. And I do wonder a little bit about the whole wedding thing, because when you were saying like with their connections and stuff, it shouldn't be hard for her to get married. She's gorgeous. She's the only child of this estate. Like who wouldn't? I'd marry her. But the thing is, her TB is also not something that can be hidden.
Right.
And if people know that, they're going to shy away from that match because they're going to be like,
we've seen from other Bengali movies, like there's child brides still at this time, and like child, like 5 years old. She could have been married, she could still have a kid before the TB takes her out. So she could still, do her duty as a woman. Gross. I agree with everything you're saying. I think that at one point in this film, I thought, an interesting thing about this is I feel like we have double manic pixie happening. So like at first you're like, he's the manic pixie, and you're like, no, but actually she's like, they're both manic pixie and they kind of deserve each other in a weird way. Like they're both obnoxious and maybe not really very good people at this point in their young lives.
I think they're both emotionally immature, to be honest.
Agree.
In the beginning, when you don't quite know who he is and what his parentage is and what he's up to, and those cryptic scenes with Vikrant Massey telling him you shouldn't be dating her. And then the knowing what we do later, the fact that he proposed marriage to this girl's father and they're going to get engaged. I was like, boy, you are always on the run from the police. How exactly are you going to be married to this person? Like, this makes no sense. So he is not like a particularly emotionally mature person either. And he started out with the giant disadvantage of presumably being an orphan and being as part of this criminal gang, but she's an orphan too now. So in some ways, her circumstances have become so reduced that she's almost on the same level as him. I mean, she's not wanted by the police, so that's a plus, I guess. But it's not like either of these people are particularly eligible, in the larger social world. And they're all both kind of like a little bit broken, I would say. Yeah.
Why do you think, was it stated in the film why she relocates to Dalhousie where it is cold and she knows she should not live because of her
My
TB?
assumption is that because of the Zamindari Act, that entire estate is going to be taken over by the government.
And this was their other property or something? Or she bought it? Or
if I remember about like the Zamindari Act and also the act where monarchies, like kingdoms were abolished, I think the thing was like, you no longer had any titular privileges, so you no longer could lord it over anyone, which thank God for that, you support her. But I think that the idea was like, you could keep your properties, and I could be wrong, and please in the comments let me know if I'm just talking out of my hat. I think the notion was that you could keep your property as long as you were willing to pay tax on it. It was usually the tax that was incredibly crippling. This is also what you see in the UK, which is why you have all of these places like Downton Abbey, like the actual mansion that is used as a stand-in for Downton Abbey. You can't these things are white elephants. You can't afford to pay the tax on them. That's why they lease it out.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in India too. Like all of those gorgeous palaces that were converted into hotels in Rajasthan, it's because if you can't pay the tax, the government is going to take it away. So you have to figure out a way for revenue generation.
Money.
I don't know if she had the expertise to do that, but my assumption was always that their Haveli was taken and their lands were taken.
Like, okay, fine, then sell the Dalhousie property and live somewhere that's better for your health. I
don't think she's the practical person that you and I are, Beth.
No, I don't think so either. But like, does she have this like I'm a young person. I'm kind of I've narrated my own romantic heroine wither away sort of narrative for myself. And I feel like she probably has, which is a youthful ding dong kind of thing to do. But, you know, and I'm sorry, there is a special dislike I have, and I need a word for this, for people who say, I want to be a writer, but then they never actually write. If you want to be a writer and you work at it and you are not successful, however you define it, no issue with that. You are a writer. If you are writing, you are a writer. If you are not writing, you are not a writer. Shut up. Or like, I want to be a painter, but I never actually paint. Well, okay, then I got nothing for you, because you got to just choose to do the work. Like everybody with everything in life, you have to do the work. So when you actually,
she does eventually showing up. She doesn't show up.
And eventually she does start, but like that young, like, I want to be a writer, but I'm never actually going to do it. Oh my God, I hate that. So she but she got there. So I was glad for her about that.
Maybe in her dad's expansive library, she had books on Keats and Bronte and all of those people. And she was like, Keats died of consumption. This sounds lovely.
Romantic. Yeah.
No, very romantic.
There's a touch of the Bronte about some of this stuff.
Die. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is just her being young and immature and just not having someone who's going to talk sense into her. And, I mean, all of us were young and immature once. I cringe when I think about the 20-year-old me.
Oh, yeah. I still have some of my high school journals, and I'll pull them out every now and again and be like, oh, God.
I went through a phase during my teenage where I fancied myself a poet, and I wrote poetry. Oh my God. I found them in my mother's apartment when she was moving. Like she sold her apartment in Mumbai and she was moving into a different one. And so she was throwing like cartons full of stuff like over the years, and I happened to find them and I was so horrified. I went into the kitchen, grabbed the scissors, tore everything up, like cut everything into small pieces and threw it in the trash.
That's for the best.
There should be no proof of what I have done. So bad. So emo. So
what do you think speaks so much to people about this film, that it is so beloved? Because if I remember correctly, it was fairly well beloved, at least by my general like Twitter circle and everything at the time. So it's not just looking back and appreciating Ranveer Singh, which is part of it.
Right.
And obviously part of it at the time is, okay, he's only 3 films old, but this is a big contrast to the previous 2 films. So there's that. But like, and I know a lot of people really like Udaan, which I do not.
I have not seen Udaan. It's on my list.
So I know that's.
Oh, I'm so surprised to hear that you don't like it, because people rave about Udaan, but I've not seen it. So.
Udaan is a Lifetime special. Just about boys in India. And so I understand that it has a different cultural context, but for me, I was like, I've seen this story 8,000 times. I'm not interested in this. Like, this is nothing. This is like, and I think it's well done for what it is. I'm just not interested in what it is. So I shouldn't say I think it's bad. It's just so very much not for me. And I don't respond to it. But anyway, so, there's that going into it, but it is interesting to me to look to see just how fondly people respond to this. And probably it's the music, right? And none of those things are small. I don't mean to take away from any of those things, but it is, I was a little surprised at how much I saw people being like 10 years of Lootera. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. That's not a film I think about very often, but okay.
Right. I mean, Lootera is definitely one of my favorite films, and definitely my second favorite Ranveer Singh performance. And I love the music as well. I can't speak for other people because here's the thing. Yes, your Twitter circle might have loved Lootera, and a lot of my friends and myself also love Lootera, but there's a lot of people who slammed this movie, and it was a box office dud, by the way. It did not make money. There are a lot of people who dislike it because they think it's boring. I suspect these are the same people that enjoy Rohit Shetty, to each his own, but there are a lot of people who do not like Lootera at all. So I do think it tends to be a little bit polarizing. I don't think it's just every single person who watches Lootera loves it. For me, Lootera is just a really well told story, and it's so pretty. It's so romantic. They look so good in this film, and it harkens back to like an older time. Would I like Lootera as much if it was set in the 2000s, like rather than being like set in the 50s? Probably not.
Yeah.
So I think
it benefits from a sort of romantic haze
that
around
sort of
it.
sapphire tone. I like that. I love the acting in it. It's just such a well-made movie, just overall. And I think the music is beautiful. I love Savarlu. And I think I think there's also, for me, it's the slow burn romance, because that's what I love about Bollywood. If I just wanted to see like people having one night stands all the time and meeting at the club and just like gyrating on each other, then I could watch Hollywood movies, but I don't. I watch Bollywood, and K-dramas are also very popular precisely because of the slow burn thing, I have a friend who was watching a K-drama, and she told me that like 15, episodes had passed and all they had done was hold hands. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I love that. And I was like, okay. So I think the slow burn of it, it's just the pace is so nice. It's a good change from our very hectic life. Like, I rewatched it. I was in the afternoon. I was sitting on my sofa. I was drinking some tea. My dog was sitting at my feet. It's just lovely. Lovely is the word I would use to describe it. Breath of fresh air.
According to Wikipedia, it did earn well over its budget.
Okay, so it was technically
maybe that was slower to come or something like that. So it was
maybe like word of mouth.
Budget 32 crore, box office 46 crore. So
okay, so it
not a massive
flop,
hit, but to make a third of its money back again.
One thing I found interesting was supposedly the role was originally offered to Sushant Singh Rajput, and he was not able to do it because he had been signed for the exclusive contract by Yash Raj, the 3-film contract. And I don't think any of his Yash Raj movies were good.
So good in this.
He would have been very good. I loved him in Kai Poche. He would have been great. Yeah.
I'm going to admit something here to you and the people who listen to this podcast, which is I have not been able to watch Kai Poche. I just can't get into it.
I can't.
No,
I don't know.
I've watched the first 15 minutes a couple of times.
I love the songs
sorry,
in
I can't.
It. Yeah. I love Shubharamb. Again, it's Amit Trivedi. Shubharamb is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's like on my playlist. Like, I love Shubharamb so much. But Kai Poche as a movie did not really speak to me. I enjoyed it, and I like Sushant Singh. But again, it's about cricket. I don't know anything about cricket. I don't like sports. The only sports movies I like are like Chak De India and stuff like that. So, Kai Poche. But I do love Sushant in it.
Now I'm sad that he wasn't in this movie. Oh, no.
I know. He would have been great for sure. When I read that, I was like, that was a smart choice to cast him, but he wanted to do it. He just couldn't because of his exclusive. That Yash Raj exclusive contract has destroyed many careers, including Parineeti Chopra, Vani Kapoor, because they make them, Aditya Chopra makes them do these atrocious movies that flop, that don't give them any kind of like, don't help them advance, and then they keep having to say no to like. I think the only person who benefited from that 3-film contract was Anushka Sharma and Ranveer, of course. But apparently, so then they approached Ranveer Singh for this movie, and he first said no because he didn't think he'd be able to pull it off. And then they were like, no, you can pull it off. And then they convinced him, and then he was like, fine, I'll do it. And then he was happy to do it. I was like, Ranveer Singh actually is known for having a really good script sense. So I was kind of surprised. You don't think so? I think he's chosen really good movies.
Yeah, largely, I would say, except Circus, right? And
we're
just talking about Circus because it's the most recent one, but
I have not had the courage to see Befikre or Circus. I've not seen those two movies.
Befikre is so bad.
which is why I've not seen it.
Vikramaditya is so bad. But he is, somewhat enjoyable in it, I would say. Oh yeah. Not even on a plane should you watch that movie.
Really?
That movie's bad. Oh, that movie's bad. And then Sushant made a movie that's very much like Vikramaditya, and like the first half of it.
Which one?
Why do I forget things the
Is
moment
it
we
that
start
Rabta
recording?
movie, the one with
Yes,
Kriti
Rabta.
Sanon?
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
I could not watch Rabta. I watched
so
15 minutes and I couldn't take it and I switched it off. I really wanted to watch it.
I describe Rabta as being the Vikramaditya and Magadira mashup that nobody was asking for. Oh, so bad. Yeah. Can we, before we leave Lootera, can we talk about Vikrant Massey? Because I was
He's so cute.
delighted to see him. His little Dev Anand things were so great. Shout out to Dev Anand reappearing on this podcast, as he will always do, I think.
What a bad penny.
Yeah, I just thought that was charming and funny, and the wonderful music from that movie I can't remember the name of the song, but that song that the old film song that's playing is so great.
Oh yeah.
I know that song. I have a CD with it on it that I used to listen to over and over, and I can't remember its name. I could have used a little more of him, but that was still like very well balanced. I thought his character is correct about, like you can't, you're either lying to yourself or you're lying to her, or both. You got to leave, and you have to leave her alone, and he doesn't do it. And he's, that's an immature choice, and it hurts.
I mean, I guess he's as green flaggy as he can be, despite being like a liar and a criminal and a thief.
Yeah.
I started saying he was green flaggy and I was like, wait, but he's a liar and a criminal and a thief. Never mind.
Yeah. But I don't know. I thought that was a really lovely first role for him. And it was so great.
I loved him in Death in the Gunge. We need to see more of him.
Yeah. He's great.
Very cool. Anything else you want to add about Lootera before we say goodbye?
I mean, I'm always here for the old Bengali film aesthetic, whether it's in old Bengali films or in more recent Hindi ones or whatever. It had a picnic. It was not a socially awkward picnic, which is what the Bengali film specialized, but it was a beautiful picnic. I actually rewound that scene to watch it twice. I'm like, why am I not having a picnic like this right now with a beautiful pink sari? And I love it. So
there was the fishing. Her dad was doing the fishing, which looked very like, okay, suspect.
Just aesthetically, I want to move into that house. And if anyone wants to go in together and buy that house, and we have a retirement community there, let me know. I'm in.
Yeah, let's set up a commune. That would be so good.
We
would just watch like Bollywood movies all day.
Rita and I have talked about this so many times. Like I'm not just joking. I really want this.
This can be a retirement home. This would be amazing. We throw like swinging parties. I would throw swinging parties.
I'll help. I'm in.
We'll keep us all beyond our bedtime. It would be amazing.
We don't. Doesn't matter what our bedtime is, because we'll be retired. Yes,
exactly. Yes. Let's do it. And we'd have lots of dogs. Can we have lots of dogs, please?
Absolutely.
Yay. Okay. Well, that was it for this episode of Filmi Ladies. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you've watched Lootera. And if you have, let us know what you think about it. Do you also feel like I do, that this is like peak Ranveer, very handsome Ranveer, he should do more of this? Or do you like the other cocaine ferret Ranveer, as Beth very nicely called him? What a compliment. So don't forget to keep watching our episodes. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you on the next episode of Filmi Ladies. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.